Dayato Vishaya Punsam, or that topic. So there's a verse in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita that Nilambar wanted me to talk about. I think you've already spoken a bit about it.
Yes.
Dayato Vishayam Punsam, Sangas Keshu Bhajayati, Sanga Sanjayati, Kama Kama Kula Bhajayati. So, you know this word dhyana. You commonly think of the word dhyana as meditation, right? In this verse, Prabhupada translates it as contemplation. So meditation, contemplation is similar. I'm meditating on buying this car. You ever seen it? I'm contemplating something, I'm meditating. I'm just thinking about it. Dayato and Vishayan. Vishayan means things which are attractive to the senses. It's actual Sanskrit, it means sense objects. It's not like a word we use in English so much. Sense objects. You know what sense objects are like? For the ear, it's sound. For the eye, it's form. For the nose, it's smell. For the skin, it's touch. For the tongue, it's taste. And belly, taste, tongue. Those are sense objects. So, Dayato Vishayam Punsam. When you meditate on sense objects, what happens? Sangha. Sanjayate. Sangha. Well, become attached. That looks good. And if you think about it long enough, but if you just look at it and think, oh, that looks good, you don't think about it, you just forget it, and you go on. You know, think about it for a while. What happens? Sangha, samjayate, kama. So, from attachment, you start getting attached. I like to have that. So it goes from, that's nice, you can walk away, to that's nice, and, I like that. Starting to get attached to it. I'm looking it up on Amazon. I'm reading the reviews. It looks nice. Maybe I should get it. And then more reviews, more videos on it. Then you go to the store and you see it. Then after a while, what happens? Kama. It's like, no, I have to have it. It's like no turning back. Sangat sanjayate kama kama koda vijayate. But the next, this verse says anger because you can't satisfy your lust. But the next verse is really interesting because it talks about losing intelligence. And it's so interesting. Have you noticed that if you want something badly enough, you become irrational? You know what they say? When you buy something you don't need, you know how you buy it? You have to convince yourself you need it. Right? But if you're a musician, you play guitar, right? You play guitar. So you know about guitars. Like I'm sure you have lots of guitars, but there's always one you don't have. So you don't really need it, but you could use it. It's nice to have it. So you tell yourself, I know. We do the same thing, so I know. So you kind of have to convince yourself you need it because you feel guilty. If you just want it, you don't really need it. So there's this phenomena, well, they call it buyer's remorse. You know about buyer's remorse? You buy it and you feel depressed because you didn't really need it. But anyway, so this phenomena, when desire becomes strong, the intelligence just kind of shuts off. And it's a very interesting thing. Now, imagine you had no intelligence. Like Krishna gave you a brain, he gave you a mind, he gave you a body, but he gave you an ego, but he didn't give you intelligence. And so you'd be all emotion. You'd be acting totally on emotion. Whatever you feel, whatever you want, you have no intelligence guiding you. Can you imagine living like that? That would be crazy, right? So if you'd be like eternally like a 5-year-old. I'm going to eat candy for breakfast. That's how I feel. But your mother tells you, no, you can't eat candy. You got to eat things which are good, right? 5-year-old kid without a mother is like us without intelligence. So, Krishna gives us intelligence so we can make rational decisions. We can control emotions, control our senses. But if the lust gets really strong, what happens? Intelligence shuts off, and now we're helpless. And then we do whatever it was we did, and then afterwards we regret it, and intelligence kicks in, and it's like, why did I do that? That was stupid. Right? Yes? This verse is so interesting. You know why? Because if you study marketing, this is exactly what they do. I don't know marketing a lot, but I've read that usually you have to see the same ad like 3 times before you take it seriously. And so back in the days when ads were in magazines, they would say you have to put it in 3 issues at least if you want to get sales. People need to see it 3 times. We're seeing it again and again and again. And it's wearing down our intelligence. Right? And they're trying to convince you your life is a total mess if you don't have this. Right? What to speak if your neighbor has it? Well, it's even worse. Right? So, I was thinking about this on the way over. It's very interesting. How could we become so easily manipulated by things? Well, it's just things. It's just wood or plastic or rubber or metal, right? Like everything we own. It's wood, plastic, rubber, metal, basically. Maybe marble, stone. So, why in the first place are we contemplating? Why do we contemplate? It's like, that's the first thing. We're just looking. Why? Why are we looking? Who wants to tell me? This is not, I'm not talking about what we need. Obviously, you're looking for what you need it. I'm talking about what we don't need. Why are we looking for what we don't need? What's the reason?
We want to fulfill some emptiness inside.
We want to fulfill some emptiness inside. Do you agree with his answer? I think it was Lord Buddha who said, the wealthy man is the one who doesn't want things, doesn't need, doesn't have a lot of wants. The poor man has a lot of wants. And what's interesting is our society is designed in a way to exacerbate our greed. Like we could be more peaceful, but we wouldn't spend money. So our greed is being exacerbated. It's like our weak points stuck with expert marketing. So this was the right answer. So I often think, Hare Krishna, I often think, if I'm thinking about I want something that I don't really need, as he said, what are we trying to do? Fill an emptiness within us. Right? And we know that thing cannot fill that emptiness. Right? Because that thing, that emptiness is not, it's not a material emptiness. Especially in our society where we have so much already. So I often think, this is just how I think, if I'm desiring something which I don't need, that's a spiritual weakness. That's like a lack of inner satisfaction. I'm not getting enough satisfaction from my spiritual life. And therefore, I'm looking outside myself to fulfill myself. Right? Now, I wouldn't fault anybody for thinking that way because that's how we're raised. That's how we're programmed. Everybody. It's subconscious. And we are programmed to think more we have, the more successful we are. The happier we'll be when we want to impress people. But the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita, it's warning us, like, ahead there are dangers, and this is how you fall into this trap. I don't know if you have in this country, but in some places I've been in the world, there's danger signs because this particular spot had many accidents. Because there's a blind spot there, and there's a sign, be careful, there have been many accidents there. So you kind of naturally slow down. You know, say blind spot, or tell you why there's accidents, so you slow down. So Shastra, scripture, is like that warning sign. It tells you what's going to happen to you if you don't know. So don't turn this way, turn this way. It's giving you warnings. So here Krishna is giving a warning. If you meditate, contemplate long enough, you're going to be attached, you'll get attached. Well, last night we were talking about detachment. Detachment is very interesting. Because it is often said, the things you own you, the things you're attached to own you. You ever feel like that? You get something, you get something for freedom, but it often controls you. I mean, look at our phones. That's a good example, isn't it? You know, for those of you who didn't grow up with phones, with smartphones, you know that the promise was they would save time. Right? You know, years ago, this devotee said, you should get WhatsApp on your phone. I don't want any more messages. No, just get it. It's easier. This will make your life easier in messaging. It made my life way more complicated. I mean, I can do more, but it's not saving me time. It's making life complicated. So, I guess maybe a lot of us don't think about detachment because we're married, and we think detachment is for sadhus and renunciants. You ever think like that? Okay, well let's look at this. What do we mean by detachment? Last night we were talking about envy. Any of you ever become envious of anyone? Never. Never. Maybe once it happened. Wouldn't it be nice to be detached enough that we're not envious of anybody? Don't you think that would be nice? So when we speak from toxic emotions, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, this verse is so interesting because Krishna is like warning us, before you fall in the trap, this is the trap. You know? It's needed immediately. And I was contemplating, should I get this one or that one or this one or that one, and, you know, examining the best one and the best price. But then I was going on a trip, and I probably should have bought it after I came back. But I was going crazy thinking about it, and I wanted to stop thinking about it, so I bought it. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Just, you know, it's like, you get to a point where it's like, if you don't, it's like an itch, you don't scratch it. So Krishna's telling us these things, like warning us, these are traps. You can live a different life if you practice detachment. So, I feel, I don't know if you feel this way, but I will share what I feel. I feel, I look at the world and I see people are being manipulated, being pulled around, being socially programmed to do certain things that don't necessarily make them happy. And when I look at that, I think the happiest person is the one who's not controlled by this, the one who's actually just says, no, I'm not going to do that, I don't need that. That's the happiest person, because they were actually in control of their lives. Like, you come from India to this country, so it's kind of natural, well, this country's way better off than India, it's way more materially advanced. So it's just natural you would do what everyone in this country does, right? I mean, why would you come? You want to upgrade your life so you see how people are living better. So you naturally want to do it. But those of us who grow up in the West, we see another side of that. We see the depression, the frustration, the divorce, the stress. And so that's where the detachment comes in. Like to see it, but to see the other side. And if I can look at something and say, there's a dark side to this, and I can be detached, that's beautiful. I'm not controlled. I'm free. Detachment is freedom. Because when you're detached, it doesn't mean you won't do anything, but it means you won't do anything because you're controlled by it. Isn't that beautiful? To not be controlled by anything and anyone. Anybody here controlled by their minds? Raise your hand if you're controlled by your mind. Anybody not controlled by their mind? It's kind of a miserable position to be in, isn't it? Don't you think? Yes? Have any of you ever done something that you told yourself you would never do? Isn't that a miserable feeling to do it? Yes?
Yes.
You tell yourself, I'll never do this again, this is not good for me. I shouldn't do it. I promise myself I won't, and then I do it again. And if you promise yourself you won't do it and you never do it, you feel so good, don't you?
Yes.
Yes. You feel like you just conquered the universe. I didn't give in to them. So it's a little counterintuitive, but detachment gives us so much pleasure because in detachment we're in control. And in attachment we're out of control because those things control us instead of us controlling ourselves. Those things we become attached to control us. So Krishna's saying, don't become attached if you don't want it, because if you do, if you meditate on it long enough, you're going to want it even if you don't want it. And you're going to have to go try to get it even if you know this is stupid. Why am I doing this? Right? What a crazy way to live. So that's the beauty of you're going to want to have it. And so, that's it. You're coming back with that Jaguar, Bentley, Maserati, Rolls-Royce, whatever it is. Does that make sense? I mean, I know you're not buying those cars, but, or maybe you are, I don't know. But does that make sense? So, I often think, and I know in my heart of hearts and my intelligence, I know that the happiest, the way I can be the happiness is to live in alignment or in integrity with what I know is the right thing to do. That is the highest happiness we can experience, is when we do what we know is right and we avoid doing what we know is wrong. Just like you ever get angry and you shouldn't have, and you regret it. It's a really bad feeling. Right? And you try to apologize, but sometimes it's like, it was so bad, the apology is like, it doesn't heal it. It was like, I punch you in the nose. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, but I'm in the hospital now. So thanks for the apology. So sometimes you destroy someone's heart and then you say, I'm sorry. And then you think, why did I do that? It's so painful to give in to our mind, senses, emotions. And we all have values. And when we live those values, that's when we're the happiest. That's when we're the happiest. That's when we're the most peaceful. That's when we feel most true to who we are. Right? And the further we get away from that, the more we suffer. And that's why this kind of detachment is necessary so that we can live fully in alignment with what we believe, what we value, what's important. Now, my dear friends, if you try to live in alignment with what you value, it's not always going to be easy, is it?
Yes.
Like you know who you are and you know how you want to feel, think, live, speak, and so forth. But sometimes the mind, the heart, just pushes you in a different direction. Ever had that experience?
Yes.
I only ask yes questions. If you're tired and you're not thinking well, the answer is always yes. Whatever, right? The answer is yes. Yes, I've had that experience. When you want to live in a more detached way, the way you do that is that you are clear about your values. You're clear about how you want to live. And when this feeling comes to violate that, the only thing that is going to protect you at that moment is tolerance. You tolerate it because you know if I give in, that is a weakness, and every time I give in, it's easier to give in the next time. Yes?
Yes.
And every time I tolerate it, it's easier to tolerate the next time. Because just because I value something doesn't mean I'm going to feel like doing it all the time. But if we value it strongly enough, we can tolerate the urge to do something else. You can, yeah. If acting in a certain way is important, but by my conditioning, I don't always act that way. My greatest friend, my greatest resource is tolerance. And sometimes that's the only thing you can do. You just, no. And that's our detachment, is our tolerance. I'm not going for it. I'm going to tolerate the urge. Have you ever wanted to eat something that's not good for you?
Yes.
Never, right? And before you eat it, have you ever told yourself, I shouldn't eat this, it's not good for me?
Yes.
Remember, these are all the answer to all my questions. Is yes. I'm also a human being. I'm a soul within a body. I know what it's like to have a body. This is the nature of being conditioned. There'll always be pushings and pullings that violate what we know. And it's so difficult sometimes. We will be doing something and at the same time telling ourselves while we're doing it, I shouldn't do it. Isn't that crazy? And how does that make you feel? Really bad. You're doing something, you're telling yourself, I shouldn't do it, and you're doing it. I mean, I can't think of a worse misery than that. Right? So, our greatest asset in these situations is our tolerance. This is how I feel, but I know what is right. And that's where intelligence comes in. So if that intelligence, you know that thing, you say, I know I shouldn't do this, it's bad. Why do I do it? Because I'm attached. I'm too attached. And so if I'm too attached, what do? I just turn my intelligence off because it's bothering me, because my intelligence is saying, don't do it. I just want to turn it off. Just shut up. All right, I'm doing it. It's like your mother saying, don't do it, and you're a little kid. It's like, don't tell me what to do. It's not good for you. Don't eat that. I want to eat it. So you just turn your mother off. Turn your father off. Isn't it like that? That's what Krishna's saying. He's saying, if you become attached to something, too attached, you won't be able not to do it even though you know it's wrong. And you'll tell yourself it's wrong, and you'll do it while you're telling yourself it's wrong. That's what this verse is describing. Wow. Who wants to live like that? Not me. I don't want to sign up for that program. So the problem is we're conditioned souls, so we have these desires. But we don't have to act on them if we're tolerant. And the rewards are amazing. And as I said, every time you do it, it's easier the next time. Right? And every time you give in, it's harder the next time. Because the Shastra says, and I think even psychologists say this, that every time you give into your habit, it strengthens the desire to do that again. Right? Like, I stopped eating sugar, I stopped eating wheat, I stopped eating so many things. But that first 2 weeks, still not easy. Right? Still not easy, but that first 2 weeks was not easy. So it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I made the determination. It was just like, whenever I had an urge for pizza or ice cream or whatever, it's like, no, I'm not doing it. And after about 2 weeks, it was like, okay, I can do this. I gave up wheat. When I was a kid, bread, spaghetti was my favorite. I used to eat when I was in college, I'd eat a loaf of bread. One whole loaf. I would just, that was like my dinner. Living alone, I don't want to cook. I did a whole loaf of bread. I just loved it. It was hard to give up that bread, but the amazing thing was after 2 weeks, I was fine. So the Shastra says, when you give into something, this is how it explains it, when you give into something, it drops a seed of that desire. So you do it, and then the seed drops in your heart, so it sprouts the desire to do it again. That's but when you stop, there's no seeds. So if we live with weak intelligence, life is difficult. And if we live with strong intelligence, then we can be very controlled. We can be in control of our life. Isn't that better? Don't you think? Would you rather be in control of your life? Or have your anger and your lust control you and your greed? Of course not. So, you've all been warned, and you all know what to do. Don't contemplate things that aren't aligned with what your highest self needs. And if those desires come up, tolerate them, because you'll be happy. Anyway, that's one understanding of this verse. So, if you have any comments, questions, you can take them now. Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. So, Prabhuji, how to get rid of the conditioning? Because intelligence is saying this is bad. We also rationally know, but we every day we fail to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, this over a period of time develops the conditioning, and then earlier there is a stage in the earlier we feel this is bad, but later once we get used to that, then that guilt is also gone after a certain time. So
You forgot it was bad.
yeah, it is like a normal.
Oh, this is normal. This is normal. Well, there is some truth to that, because you don't want to berate yourself for being normal and being conditioned. But in my journey in this area, I just realized that there's so much that we are learning from Bhagavad Gita about how to act. So if you're going to allow yourself to learn how to act and not be willing to act that way because you're conditioned in another way, it doesn't make sense, does it? And it just further disturbs you, because every week you're learning how to act this way, but every week you're acting this way. You know, that's a real formula for guilt, isn't it? So if I believe Bhagavad Gita is the teachings I want to follow, then and I don't follow it in the name of my condition, it doesn't make sense.
How to increase that tolerance?
Yeah. So, I think maybe for many of us, we don't realize how important it is to us to follow those teachings. Because it's like, if you're coming to spiritual life, you're coming because you have an interest in some way to make your life better and change the course of your life. So then you're coming to change the course, so it doesn't make sense to go back to the same old course you came from, which is basically what you're saying, right? I'm doing the same old thing, although I know it's wrong. Before, maybe I didn't know it was wrong. So we start with understanding. This is like like this is where I came from, and I was coming from there, and I came to here because there was not making me happy. It wasn't what I wanted. So you're basically saying I'm going back to what I left. So think about that. And how you overcome conditioning is you practice acting in a different way. Say, I always do this in this. I always become impatient in this situation. Well, you have to practice patience, because if you keep practicing impatience, how will you ever become patient? Right? You might say, I have this problem with patience, and I will say, well, you have a lot of practice with impatience. If I say, well, how long have you been impatient? You say, all my life. I was born that way. So, how old are you? Oh, I'm 40 years old, 35, whatever you are. Say, oh, so you have 35 years of practice of impatience. And you're asking me, why is it so difficult to control it? Say, because you really got good at it. 35 years, you get good at something, right?
Yes.
What if you started practicing patience when you were 20? Now you have 10, 20 years of practice of patience. You're getting good at patience. So sometimes it's not like you can't wait. You know, I'm going to try to be patient, and I'm going to wait for, the gods of patience to rain on me. You just have to practice it, even when it's difficult, because that's how you develop it. It's the way you develop impatience. So it works for the bad qualities, it works for the good qualities. And sometimes it's all you can do. A lot of people, they wait. They think, well, if I'm in the right frame of mind, then I can do it. But that's difficult. It's easier to just do it. Don't wait. You may never be in the right frame of mind. Right? It's like, okay, everyone, you're never going to eat sugar the rest of your life. When do you want to start? Can we start on Monday? Monday comes. It's a busy week. Can we start next week? Right? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So if patience is important to you, and so just do it. Start today. Start right now. Practice it. I'm not saying you have to become patient. You just have to practice it, because that's how you'll become patient. And so, oh, well, Monday I'll give up sugar. That was a bad day. What about Tuesday? 25 years later, maybe next week. Because I'm not in the mood. We're trying to get in the mood. I'm not in the mood to give it up. Yeah, but you want to know how to get in the mood? Just give it up. That will put you in the mood. It's true. It's amazing. I do exercises all the time in my workshops, and I get people and devotees to appreciate people they don't like, it's a really weird thing to do. Think of someone you don't like. Think of someone that you resent. Think of somebody that criticizes you, whatever, and appreciate them. And you know what happens after you do that? It's like, this is the first time in your life you ever saw anything good about them. Because it's just all you can see. Look what they did. All you see is this big black over them. And so when you appreciate them, your feelings towards them change. And the appreciation that I ask the students to do in the class, that's forced. They don't want to do it. They didn't come to that workshop to appreciate someone they don't like. And after they do it, I say, how do you feel? And they say, I feel really good. I feel really different. I have different feelings towards them. Now I have different feelings towards them. I couldn't get those feelings towards him unless I did the act. And I forced you to do it. You didn't want to do it. But by doing the act, it changed your mind. So sometimes you have to act to change your mind. And if you wait to act, you wait to change your mind to act, you may never change your mind. Next week. I'll do it next week. Why don't you do it? Well, I don't feel like it. All right. Well, act against your feelings. Practice. My dear devotees, we're practicing something, isn't it?
Yes.
So you're either practicing patience or impatience, resentment or forgiveness, kindness or hatred. It's the one or the other. And if you have a problem with something, it's like, well, that's what you're doing all the time. What do you think? You ready?
Yes.
Practice, 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 practice. You become reconditioned. It's the easiest way to overcome a bad habit or a belief. A lot of the problems are beliefs. Like, this is how I am, unconditioned. That's a belief. Right? How come you never change? Because this is how I am. Oh, I tried in the past, it doesn't work, all these things. All right, forget all that, just do it. Forget, the psychology, this and that, you just do it. You'll be okay. You'll change. You want to try? See?
Yes.
So here's the mantra. Pay attention again. This is a really good mantra. It is easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than it is to think your way into a new way of acting. It's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking. Easier than thinking your way into a new way of acting. Because trying to think your way into a new way of acting, you may never get it. You're just like, I don't have a place in my brain for that. All right, no problem. Just do it. And then your mind changes. Do you know that you can change your mind just with physiology? Okay, you want to have some fun? Can we have fun tonight?
Yes.
Okay, go like this. Everybody go like that. And put your head up. How do you feel? Humble, more humble than a blade of grass? I don't think so. All right, go like this. Feel a little more humble now? Oh, what did we do? I just changed your thinking by changing your body. Isn't that amazing? That is crazy, right? This really funny story. This one man was in a seminar, and he was depressed, and I don't know why the facilitator brought him up. He brought him up to the front, and so the man was like this. So I'm very depressed. So the facilitator went like that, facilitator standing up, and he went like this also. Said, so tell me about it. And he was mimicking everything. I'm really depressed. And, all right, can you tell me some more about it? And the facilitator said, I'm also getting depressed. This works. This posture and tone of voice, it works. I'm also depressed. So he's trying to make the point. You can change your mentality by changing your action. That's so beautiful. So try it. If you think I can never change, just do it. See what happens. Is that good? Yes.
Maharaj, when you first came to
Radharani ki jai, Radharani ki jai. Radharani has appeared. Radharani Dasa. Yes.
you first came to Sri Prabhupada and you heard this kind of things, it must have been a shock on your mind that because you grew up in a very absolutely opposite 180-degree opposite way. So, what was the process like? Did you like it? Was it too much for you? You ran away, came back? Or...
Well, having done most everything I wanted to do when I was young. Well, here's an offer for you. After you've tried everything in the world, why not try renunciation? Maybe that's better. Maybe you tried everything else. I got this, I got that, got this. Like, oh, it's okay. We're comfortable. Everything's all right. So that's what I was like. Well, I tried everything. I was like, well, this is not enough. So I tried renunciation. I thought, well, if having more didn't work, maybe having less will work. So I was actually quite excited about renunciation because I never did it. But I just had this intuition that it's actually going to be better. So I became celibate. when I was 19, which was crazy in 1969. You have to be crazy to try to be celibate in America or in Amsterdam or in London. But I thought, well, I did everything else, so let's try this. And when I did it, I felt like the most powerful person in the universe. I was like, here's 50,000 students in college, and 2 of them are celibate, and I'm one of them. Yes! I felt fantastic. I just felt like, okay, now I'm not being controlled. And giving up things, giving up attachments. It was like, oh, this is free. I'm freeing myself. I'm giving up these attachments. I can free myself from this. I felt so good, so liberated. So in that sense, it wasn't hard because I was at a point where, the way I was raised, I was just spoiled, so I had everything. So by the time I was like 19, I really wasn't like, what more could I have? I had enough. So I was more excited about giving up at that point. It just intrigued me. So it was great. I mean, you have to be ready for it, of course. And so now you're all married. So for me it was easy because I was brahmachari. Just move in the temple. When you're married, you can be as renounced, but it's more difficult because you have to renounce the mentality that everything's mine. So you have this home. So your renunciation is, this home is not mine, belongs to Krishna. And I use it for him. So I can have everything. That's harder. Because the renunciant, he lives in an ashram, he has nothing. He's just got a sleeping bag, and 2 dhoti, dhoti, kota, korata. One bag, 1 pair of shoes, it's like, well, that's easy. I always think about George Harrison. Like, he I don't know if you know about the Beatles, but the Beatles, when he became a devotee, were the biggest rock band ever in the history of rock bands. And he went to Prabhupada, I don't know if you know this, he went to Prabhupada and said, should I shave my head and move in the temple? Did you know that? He went to Prabhupada. Said, should I shave my head and move in the temple? And I was thinking, well, when I joined, I had like $150 in the bank, had like 5 shirts, 5 pairs of pants, 2 shoes, 1 guitar, 2 guitars actually. They were nice guitars, but I didn't have that much. And George Harrison, he had like, who knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars he had in prestige and fame. I'm like, wow, when he said, I want to, should I shave my head, I thought, wow. That is, you want to talk about renunciation. That's renunciation, isn't it? Like you have it all and you say, and Prabhupada said, no, you don't do that. You serve through your music. You sing about Krishna. You will preach through your music. But, so when you're married, you have so many things, but you think this all belongs to Krishna, it's not mine. That's your renunciation. And so I'll use it for him, in his service. Because our disease is we think everything is mine. Right? This is my body, everything I own is mine. And a devotee thinks everything is Krishna's, even my body. Yes? Not good. I don't know, did I answer your question or did it sidetrack?
I also remember that Srila Prabhupada told that you're already Krishna's son, Harrison. So you don't have to change name to do something.
George Harrison.
Because you're already Krishna's son.
Son of Hari. Okay, I'll tell you the story of how I got cursed to not be a rock star. See how my hair fell out at the same time as I got the curse, so it was like impossible. So this is a really interesting story, and we can relate this story to the topic. So I joined in the late 60s, 1969, and the hippie movement and culture had its own music. The music was affecting how people were thinking. It was basically, the music was changing the culture. It was such an integral part of the culture. What they were singing. There's a lot of protest songs and a lot of songs about against materialism. And so I wrote Prabhupada a letter and I said, if we form a rock band and we become famous, then we could influence the whole generation of Krishna consciousness. We'll be there and we'll write the songs and they'll be singing the songs. I'm not the body, I'm spirit. They'll all be singing it. Like with Shelter. Do you know the band Shelter? Do you know the band Shelter? It's a straight edge band. In America, Devotee was very popular as a musician, and then he created a Krishna conscious band. And he said it was so funny, he would go to the concerts and they're all singing his lyrics. Just surrender! You know, they're singing all the lyrics like that. So that's what I thought, we would change the whole culture. So I was giving Prabhupada, this scenario. These bands, like stadiums, they sell out stadiums, and everyone who comes will get a Krishna book, and one concert, 10,000, 20,000 people, 10,000 Krishna books. I was like, yes. I was 20 years old. 20 years old when I wrote Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, no, so I was saying, so Prabhupada will become famous, we make a band, become famous, and then all these things will happen. Krishna books, the whole younger generation will become Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada said, you will never become famous. This is all phantasmagoria. And then he said, don't try to become famous, try to make Krishna famous. And I was thinking, I thought I was trying to make Krishna famous, but when Prabhupada said, don't try to be famous, I was thinking, actually, that was the desire that I didn't know was there. That was motivating this, that I wanted to be famous, because I had that desire before. And then, in retrospect, I was thinking, do you think at 20 years old, if our band became famous, do you think at 20 years old I could have handled that? I don't think so. I have a friend, Havidas, and he became famous. And he tells me his stories of how hard it was. I don't know your experience, but he said it was so hard. I had a hard time for a while. And I'm thinking, wow, what if that band became famous? And I'm like, big, rock star, 20 years old. Forget it. I would not be here giving class for that. That'd be some drug rehabilitation program. At 20 years old, I could handle it. So that's a high level of renunciation, when you can handle wealth, fame, influence, and offer it to Krishna. That's renunciation. I have another story. This is so funny. This is like the transcendental joke. So I recorded the Brahma Samhita. Some of you may have heard it. In 1989, we recorded Brahma Samhita. And it was just for fun. We just did it. I was with another devotee. And MIDI had just come out. It was a way to do things we could never do before. And so we got a computer and a synthesizer, and we were working on some music. And I had just, for fun, I'd been singing Brahma Samhita, the traditional melody, but I was putting chords to it, so it didn't sound the same anymore. And we thought, for fun, let's just do this. So we spent 6 hours on it. It's not a long time to spend on this. We spent 6 hours and we did it. And I was like, okay, that was fun. And that became my most popular recording ever. Right? And it went to Russia in the 80s, I think. And the devotees from Russia came and said, you're famous in Russia. I go, really? I've never been there. That music, I promise them. So, and somehow or other in Delhi, like in the 90s and 2000s in Delhi, if you go to the Delhi temple, they have a bookshop. And that kirtan, that Brahma Samhita, was playing like 25 hours a day, like, for like 10 years. I don't know why, they just loved it. It was like non-stop. So once I was in India, I was in Delhi, and this devotee said, Mahatma Prabhu, you're famous in Delhi. I said, really, I am? He said, yeah, they play your Brahma Samhita non-stop. You know? So I'm thinking, I always wanted to be famous. And then I was like, I'm a devotee. I can't relish fame. So it was like, here's the maha, and the day before the doctor said, don't eat white flour, don't eat anything fried, don't eat sugar, don't eat spice, like everything on that plate you can't eat. And I'm looking at it and going, these are all my favorite foods and I can't eat it. So it's like Krishna was like put on the plate, here, pride, enjoy it. You always wanted it. I'm like, I can't, it's against my principle. It was like, I was just laughing. I was like, this is so funny. It's like, finally I became famous. But I can't enjoy it because it's against bhakti. So whatever you have, you offer to Krishna. You use it in a detached way. So that's more difficult. It's easier just to be a renunciate. But to have that and renounce it, that's what most of us have to do. Renounce the identification, the desire to enjoy it. Right? And just offer it to Krishna for his pleasure. Yes?
It's almost
Yes.
9 o'clock.
Oh,
Maybe you can lead a kirtan and then we take a
okay.
You want to play keyboard? Or harmonium?
Oh, I have guitar.
Guitar.
I gave my guitar to the temple when I joined. You play guitar? You want to play?
No.
You want to play? You play. No. What kind of keyboard do you have? You probably have a Casio, right? Or you-
No,
Yamaha?
like a big one.
What's the
but
name
like-
of it?
I think. Summon.
What?
It's some German.
Really? Is it any good?
Sometimes.
Usually kids don't get the good models.
May it be melody for you?
Yeah. It's easier for me to play harmonium, but unless that keyboard is really special. Oh, you want me to play guitar?
Classic guitar.
It's a classical guitar.
Yeah, classical.
I like playing harmonium. Unless you play guitar. You play guitar. I like playing harmonium.
Once again, I'll go out and the table.
This
Anyone else want to play guitar? Do we have a table for the harmonium?
Yeah, she is bringing. Yes.
oh, it's very small.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Govinda.
надо?
Было бы хорошо, было уже поздно.
Ну хорошо.
I think I'm a cowherd boy in my eternal identity. So I like to sing Govinda Jaja. I don't know if it's true, but I'm attracted to Krishna and cowherd boys. And a lot of times when I chant, I just think I'm playing with Krishna and cowherd boys. I have some disciples, they also think they're cowherd boys. I don't know. It's a coincidence. Govindam Jai Jai, Gopal Jai Jai, Govinda Jai Jai, Gopal Jai Jai, Govindam Jai Jai, Gopal Jai Everyone together. Well, we have to take prasadam, huh? Hmm?